Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be our welcome for the next hour, guys. You're in for a treat. The guy who probably has had the best response to my question at the end of the show in all the history of You're Welcome, Hollywood star Ethan Suplee. He's the host of American Glutton. You've known him. You've been around since Boy Meets World, Dogma, Mallrats. My Name is Earl. You're the brother on that. People have seen you in so many things. Is it weird? And am I incorrect that more people know your name from your podcast than your acting? Because I feel like everyone knew your American History X. I feel like people knew your face, but they didn't know the name.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably accurate. Yeah, I've had much more publicity for myself as me rather than for a movie I was in or a TV show, just because I lost weight and have a podcast.
But
Yeah.
isn't it interesting? This is something I find really pleasing. There are a lot. You're from Hollywood, of Hollywood, been there, done it for a very, very long time, since the 80s. There's a lot of your peers who think, just like how there's this big divide between being a movie actor and being a TV actor, and they think, okay, I'm a movie actor, I'm gonna get a TV show and I'm gonna kill it, and then it's like canceled up to 6 episodes because doesn't always transfer. There's a lot of Hollywood to big names. Lindsay Lohan's one example, who think I'm gonna have a podcast, it's gonna kill, and then it doesn't go anywhere because for various reasons. Does that give you some bit of Schadenfreude that you're kind of killing it as a podcaster and they're like crashing and burning?
Listen.
No, you listen.
Listen to me, Michael. Let me tell you something. I'm going to set you straight right now. I want nothing but success for everyone. I only celebrate people's successes and I ignore the failures. No. Quite honestly, it does a little bit because I think that knowing so many of these people, I think there are so many like vapid people with no point of view, or a point of view that's like been manufactured and been rehearsed with publicists for so long that it's like, okay, you have nothing original to say, and you're just going to talk about all the ideas that your publicist went over with you for the last 20 years, and that to me is not an interesting podcast. But then there's guys like who I love, like Henry Zabrowski, who I worked with on The Wolf of Wall Street, who has a fucking podcast that's awesome called The Last Podcast on the Left. Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah, of course. It's very well known.
It's insane. It's like they tell stories, they do little sketches. It's hilarious. It's always about the creepiest, weirdest stuff. That is amazing. But that's like something I think Henry was genuinely interested in versus somebody who might not have interesting ideas about anything. And like, I don't know that I could do a podcast about anything else and be successful. The one thing that I'm like well versed in is dieting and diet culture, because I dieted for so long. I'm sorry, regimening.
You're being completely modest and inaccurate, because I've been around you and the stories you can tell and have told are infinite and infinitely entertaining. You're a natural storyteller. It's such a treat. There's like 5 people on earth and you're one of them where I'm like, I'm going to sit down and shut up and just listen to this guy ramble, because it's just gold. And it's just the things that you've seen in your life, being that like not Tom Cruise level, but being in Tom Cruise movies, or maybe not literally. So you've seen it all. So
yeah, I would say like I enjoy myself in that space.
Yeah.
And the first thing to do to get yourself kicked out of that space is start telling stories. Like,
sure,
you and I are friends. So if if we're hanging out, I can tell you all those stories because I know I'm just telling you. I'm never going to say those stories on a podcast.
I understand. I'm just saying, but you do know how to tell a story, which is something a lot of people don't. And I'm specifically thinking of, regardless of people's politics, like Michelle Obama has a podcast. And it's like, okay, you were the first lady for 8 years. You saw it all. As first lady, you got to keep your mouth shut. She went to college. She's got opinions. She's got a point of view, very strong point of view about many issues. And I saw this clip, and it's her and her brother, and they're talking about, hey, is a hot dog a sandwich, which was a meme 7 years ago.
Right.
And they're not even like laughing about it. Like, you can imagine like Ellen with some, with what's her name? whatever, any some team
Portia
some
with Portia or somebody
Portia.
like
No,
that.
no,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
team star like, what do you think? Is a hot dog a sandwich? They're cracking each other up. What a weird question, haha. And she's just sitting there, almost like a lawyer, being like, "Well, if it's not a sandwich, what is it?" It's like this is supposed to be fun.
I want to
Like,
know. I want to know how Michelle felt on the sixth invasion of Barack. Like, you know
right?
what I mean? Like, what did it make you feel anything that night when he got home or back to the whatever wing they lived in and said, "Well, we just invaded another one." And she said, "What is that now, Barack? Is that six?" And he said, "Yeah, not even the seventh yet, but like on the sixth, what was happening internally? Like, that's a story I would like. Who gives a shit what she thinks of a hot dog?"
But the thing is, what went through your head when Joan Rivers said you had a dick? Talk about that, right? Is
I
it
want to hear
offensive?
that. By the
Laugh it
way,
off.
I I I care nothing. Like to me, that kind of thing is hurtful. Like there, but I'm hearing people so invested in this Candace Owen thing with the British, sorry, French,
French.
the French chick, and like wasn't there already a trial about this in France? Wasn't she proven to be a woman in a court of law in France? Like, why is this a
Wait, no.
thing?
Well, I think that's kind of, I haven't followed it completely, but I think the counter argument would be, well, OJ was found innocent as well,
Right.
right? So
Fair enough.
I would guess the case said it was slander, but that didn't make it false.
Right.
It made
So,
it, because this is France. This is not
right.
America.
Right.
The,
Sometimes propaganda can be true. I guess that's the
and the
argument,
other
right?
thing that, when I did a book with D.L. Hughley called Black Man, White House, and one of the funniest, an oral history of the Obama years, and one of the funniest parts of that book was, inauguration night. Well, maybe not with them, but with any other president, he took her back to the bedroom and she's screaming out, "Fuck me, Mr. President, fuck me, Mr. President." And that's in that book. Tell us about it. That first
Yeah. That's
inauguration night.
interesting. That
Are
you're
you
right.
exhausted? Are
Lots
you
of interesting
horny?
stories. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
I would even love a Michelle Obama podcast just about all her health initiatives. Like she wanted
Sure.
to do healthy food in schools. That's interesting. Like that's something I would actually probably listen to.
Or yeah,
But
or children. How? Hey, I have some kids here who lost weight.
yeah,
Here's what you could do with your family. It doesn't have to be. It could be vanilla. That's certainly entertaining.
no, but I think people go for just the lowest common denominator quite often, and it's just boring. And like, there's 3 million podcasts. There, I think there's literally three
Is it
million
really?
podcasts. And so, like, if we're just rehashing memes from 7 years ago, that's not going to work. What does that get
Right.
anyone?
But it's clear someone sat her down and said to her, "Look, you're Michelle Obama. People love you," which is true. She's got a big fan base, but it doesn't. I mean, very few of Michelle Obama's fans want to hear her sing or hear you. I probably hear you sing or hear me sing. Doesn't mean it ports to every single aspect of your life. So it's doing her a big disservice.
I would love a Lindsay Lohan podcast about all of her sabbaticals due to exhaustion. I would love, you know what I mean? Like I would tune in for that. That I'm an audience member for that. Um, because like I personally have been to rehab a number of times for drug
Right.
use. What is it like going for exhaustion? You know what I mean? Like I want to know what the intricacies are when you're doing detox. Are all the junkies who are crawling out of their skins jealous of you who's just resting?
Do you know what the podcast will be called?
What?
No Ways Tired. That's the perfect name. So, two movies that are huge cult hits
Yeah.
are, we were just talking before we recorded that you were in, Mallrats and Dogma. They're being re-released, but there was some studio drama. Talk to people about that because this is really interesting for a lot of people.
Okay.
And
Dogma.
talk about your experience working on those because those are like iconic films.
Yeah. Mallrats was the first movie I was in. I had been doing Boy Meets World and like a handful of commercials. There's actually a really great commercial that I'm quite proud of that was from the early 90s for Sega, where I'm like sitting in a park playing a Game Boy. I hit myself in the head with a dead squirrel, and suddenly I can see color. And this is like, now, you can see color if you concuss yourself on, or you can just go get a Sega, right? It was like a really, when commercials were a little bit crazy. It was like today that commercial would be a Super Bowl commercial. But that was just the average back then. Um, and I went to do Mallrats, and I thought like shit, I'm on a TV show, but now I'm a movie guy. I'm going to do this movie. Kevin Smith made Clerks for, 40 grand or something like that. And it made millions of dollars at the box office. Now he has a couple $1,000,000 to make Mallrats. This is going to be a monster hit. And then nobody saw it. And it was a terrific disaster at the box office.
It was a bomb? I thought it was so beloved.
It became one of the most rented movies at Blockbuster.
Wow. Okay.
It became a cult classic on video and then later on DVD. And it is huge. It was one of the most rented movies, but in the theater it did no business. And basically my aspirations of being a movie guy fizzled for a minute there. But that
Wait a
was
minute, hold on. I gotta break this down because this is so fascinating and very few people have this insight. When do you realize that a movie, first of all, it's at the very least, it's innovative, right? So, hey, I'm part of a project that I can be proud of because we're making something fresh. That in and of itself is a big deal. So, like, if I've never had a book that bombed, but if I did a book that bombed, but it was something I was trying to do successfully,
yeah.
that was pushing the envelope, I'd at least pat myself on the back that I tried, swung for the fences. At what point do you have the understanding, hey, no one's going to see this thing? Like, when do they tell you and how do you find out?
So I found out on Kevin Smith's answering machine on Monday following the release of the movie.
Okay.
I went with my parents like to a number of screenings just to like go like, how are people enjoying this? And sadly they were all empty.
Wow. Okay.
We would pop in and go like, and it'd be like a handful of people in the audience. And that was, but it didn't fully set in. I called Kevin Monday just to say like, how'd the movie do? And his outgoing message was like, we are licking our wounds. This has been a rough weekend.
Oh, wow.
And I just knew like, okay. And it was, wow. There were a number of, excuse me, troubling things. One, before Mallrats came out, he was going to do Chasing Amy set in high school. And I was going to be one of the lead characters in it. Then he like completely revamped Chasing Amy because suddenly he knew like, I got to go back and make this movie for a lot less money and get a little grittier. I think he spent 250 grand on Chasing Amy, which I'm in, but it was completely changed. It's now post-college. It's at 30 somethings and not about high school kids at all. And then that was a success, and then that got him back into it. But basically, Mallrats was a failure until it hit video and became like big with college kids.
Wow. Okay. So, is there a sort of spiraling that like, oh crap, I'm associated with this, there goes my movie career?
No, I didn't even think about it that much. Okay. To be honest with you, it was just back to I was on a TV show at the time, so.
Okay.
It was like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this. And then, I'll go try to do another movie later.
Guys, I want to talk about a sponsor that is near and dear to my heart and to my family because my nephew uses their product. Also, he has Crohn's. That is Just Thrive. As many of you know, I had stomach issues all my life growing up. And then I met someone who had Crohn's disease. And he had recommended probiotics. I'd never heard of it before. And it fixed my issues almost immediately. They're low cost, virtually no risk. And when you have these kind of issues, you think this is just how I am. And I'm telling you, you don't have to live that way. When you try it, you're like, oh, this is what it feels like to be a normal person. If this sounds like something that's hitting close to home, I would strongly encourage you to try Just Thrive. So not only have their probiotics, they also have a new product, which are digestive bitters. Now, what these are, they're tasteless. They're capsules that contain 12 bitter herbs, clinically proven to wake up your digestive system for results you can feel. So it helps with bloat, burps, belly aches after meals, just comfortable digestion. And Just Thrive bitters even support natural GLP-1 production, which helps control cravings and helps you keep satisfied longer when it comes to food. Give your gut the care it deserves. Try Just Thrive probiotics and digestive bitters today, risk-free. Save 20% off with the code WELCOME at justthrivehealth.com. See the difference for yourself. Full product refund, no questions asked. Justthrivehealth.com, code WELCOME. I don't even know where to start in terms of recommending this. This is something that has helped me out so much in my life. I talked about it before they were a sponsor. I'm going to talk about it till the day I die. your gut health and your stomach issues are such a thing that affect every aspect of your life. And when you find out that something that's so easily fixed, you want to pull your hair out, as I wanted to do. And I'm so grateful that they're a sponsor. JustThriveHealth.com, code welcome, and you get 20% off, risk free. Folks, you know how it gets. Start small. There's a bill you can't pay today. Then there's another. Suddenly your mailbox is flooded with final notices. Pay immediately. Legal action pending. Phone doesn't stop ringing. You don't answer, but you know who it is. Debt collectors, and they're not going away. They want your car. They want your home. They want your paycheck. They want your peace, your family's future. Debt doesn't wait. It destroys quietly and then all at once. But there's a way out. PDS Debt has helped hundreds of thousands of people escape before it's too late. This is your moment. Take it before debt takes everything, because PDS Debt goes beyond the numbers to understand your unique financial situation, and they craft a personalized plan just for you. There's no minimum credit score required. They're here to help you save more, pay off your debt faster, and start putting money back where it belongs, in your pocket. And here's the thing. PDS Debt is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They boast thousands of 5-star reviews on Google, 5-star rating on Trustpilot. Why? Because PDS has helped hundreds of thousands of people get out of debt. I have been in debt in the past, and it is crippling, because no matter what you do, no matter where you go, you're always thinking about that money that you owe, and it's like being in quicksand. You're 30 seconds away from being debt-free. Get your free assessment and find the best option for you right now at pdsdebt.com/welcome. That's pdsdebt.com/welcome. pdsdebt.com/welcome. Let's get back to the show. This is something I think this is something I've heard a lot. I think you and I have even discussed it, but I want to hear you talk about it again. Isn't it a thing in Hollywood where every actor is perpetually terrified, even though they are at the Tom Cruise level, that their next film is going to be their last? So
Yeah.
they're in this constant state of panic and neurosis.
Yes. I mean, yes, that has been my experience, and that is the experience of many of the people I know. Um, until you get to a certain level where you can basically do whatever you want, like you take an idea to any studio and they greenlight it, and that is for sure a level. But then even those guys have to be pretty on their A game, because if they take too many ideas to studios and they're not successful, they'll be done too. Hollywood is very finicky that way.
Yeah. But that can't be good for mental health.
No, I don't think it is. I think being an actor is one of the absolute toughest jobs ever, simply because, like, our union is the most unemployed union, I believe, on earth.
Right.
You
Oh,
know,
right.
there's
It makes sense. Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of members, and like 1% of the actors make a living as an actor. Imagine if the Teamsters union, if only 1%
Right.
of the union was making a living as a Teamster. It's just crazy.
Let's go back to Dogma Mallrats,
Yeah.
the experience and them coming out.
So Mallrats comes out. It's a disaster. Kevin kind of rethinks the way he's making movies and goes back to independent film. Mallrats was for Universal via a small imprint called Gramercy. So he
Okay.
goes back, makes Chasing Amy completely bare bones independent. When we were on the set of Mallrats, he gave me a script to read for Dogma. And I read it, and I still to this day think it's one of the best scripts I've ever read. It's such an interesting take on Catholicism, really, and the hierarchy of saints and the God and all of that. It was just so fascinating. Um, but he then goes and does Chasing Amy. Chasing Amy is a big success. That gives him the ability to go back to a studio to make Dogma, because that really required a bigger budget. And I believe he went to Miramax for Dogma. And so to this day, the only movies that he didn't own outright were Mallrats and Dogma. Mallrats was accessible because Universal made lots of deals to put it out on streaming or on DVD and on video. I don't know what happened with Dogma, but it could have been something where, with the Weinsteins, when they sold their company, I believe they personally retained ownership of Dogma,
Oh,
and it
okay.
just basically went and sat in a vault. Like you couldn't get it on video, you couldn't get it on DVD, you couldn't watch it on any streaming platforms. It's just been kind of MIA for a long time. and Kevin just got the rights to it.
Oh wow.
So he's like off touring it, taking it to theaters and doing like Q and A's and like making events out of the screening of Dogma, which is really really cool.
So it's really funny because I have a visceral, not rational hatred of Kevin Smith.
Really,
But yeah, like there's this term on the internet called bitch eating crackers,
uh-huh.
where someone's on a reality show and you have such a visceral hatred for them that they're sitting on the couch eating crackers. You're like, oh my god, look at her eating crackers. And I just, but at the same time, there's lots of things he's done which makes me realize that my emotions are based on something else and not him. First of all, he's very uh, there's a humility to him because I've attacked him on Twitter and other places, and instead of getting his hackles up, he's like, "Yeah, you're probably right." So that says something about his character. I've seen him as a judge on several reality shows, and he's very fair and very much boostering the contestants and a fan and encouraging, which I think speaks a lot of his character and stuff like that. Where like this is his kid, the movie, and he owns it and is still proud of it and kind of promoting it to the fans, that says a lot about his character also.
I will just say he is one of the great guys that I know of, as far as like having a good moral compass, being decent, very interested in his friends having success,
Wow. Okay.
and very interested. And then for you, of everybody I know, you and he collect in a very similar way. Not similar things, but you collect in a similar way. Like I look at your background
Hold
right
on. Hold
now.
on. Do you know
Yeah.
what's on the floor right here? You
I
can't see it. I'm going to show it to you right
okay.
now. This me and Ethan did not plan this, but this is the what I just received in the mail a couple weeks ago from auction. The frame is coming, so it's still unframed. Okay.
Okay.
So it's written by the secretary. Okay, but this is the telegram from Buffalo, New York. You can't read it because but I'll read it to you. It's from um, September 4th, 1901, Buffalo, New York. Um, the president is dying. So
Wow.
this is the telegram that was sent from I forget George Cortelyou, who was with McKinley at the time. And then this is another telegram. Again, the secretary wrote it. It's not in his hand. September 14th, 1901, Hotel Manhattan, New York. The president passed away at 2:15 this morning.
Wow.
But that's not it.
Okay.
Since I'm an
There's more.
this is the money shot. Since I'm an anarchist, obviously McKinley was shot by an anarchist, Leon Czolgosz,
It's the greatest president of all time, McKinley.
whose quote was with a preface for Anarchist Handbook. This
Oh my
it looks
God.
like a nice picture, right? So
Yeah.
this is the original hand-drawn autopsy of Leon Czolgosz's brain that was done in 1901 by the whatever the term is, the guy who does the autopsies. So this is his pen and his ink drawing. Because I'm not going to get a Czolgosz autograph,
No. No,
but
you're
this is the
not.
next
You're
best
going to
thing.
get that, which is better. I think that might be better than
Yeah.
an autograph.
And the cool thing about pieces I have
You have his brain.
but it just looks like a drawing. You don't know. To me, a good piece that you have on the wall is at a glance, it just looks like, okay. And then there's a story behind it.
Yeah. Well,
So
that is, you go to Kevin Smith's house, and it's the and you're the only other person I know who lives in this way. And I'm sure there are
sure.
collectors. That's not true. I was actually at Guillermo del Toro's house once, not too long ago, and he is a rabid collector also. So those are the three people I've ever been in their homes who are died in the like just true collectors.
That's a really easy fuck Mary kill too.
Yes,
It's
absolutely,
go ahead.
absolutely. But like that's something I think, and it's not the same stuff. Like he likes comic stuff and pop stuff like that. But like you guys could talk about just the act of collecting and what this stuff means to you, and have a great conversation just about that. But he is a really decent guy. Listen, I understand there are people that rub me the wrong way for whatever reason. Um, Often I will try to figure out what about them that bothers me I am also doing. So maybe you're seeing a little bit of yourself in Kevin
Well, I'll
Smith.
tell you exactly what I thought about this a lot because I'm like, why do I have such strong feelings about Kevin Smith? He's not hurting anybody.
Right.
He's making his movies. His movies I like,
Yeah.
so it's not even that I'm opposed to his art. The character Silent Bob, he has this kind of aw shucks demeanor, but at the same time he's Yoda.
Yeah.
So to me, it reads as extremely insincere because he's trying to play it off like I'm just like me and you, but he clearly sees himself, or he seems to, from my interpretation, see himself as this great wisdom of the ages.
Right.
And
Yoda
that,
should be cocky. Yoda
or
walks
not
around like he has a 6 foot cock.
right, that's the one. So
Yeah.
it seems like you're being a phony by trying to present as like, oh, I just got these few ideas. No, you have a lot of ideas. Own it.
Right. Right. I get that. I think he is. I think a lot of that might come from him, like, not being comfortable as an actor, and
Okay.
so not wanting to give himself a lot to say, but then when he needs to say something, like drop the Yoda wisdom
Yeah,
on
yeah.
people, just make it concise, you know? I
He
don't know, I've never talked to him about that, but I
I
totally see what you're saying.
I saw him give a speech once, and it was one of the funniest speeches I've ever seen. Because I'll recap it, and people look it up. You'll die laughing because he tells that story like nobody's business. He got hired to do a rewrite to do a Superman movie, write the script, and I think it was Josh Brolin. I feel like Barbara Streisand's husband was somehow involved. Isn't that his name, James Brolin?
Yeah,
Whatever. So he goes to the guy's house and he's like, all right, Superman. Like Kevin Smith named his daughter Harley after Harley Quinn, if I'm not mistaken. He
yeah,
loves comics. Like
loves him.
he bleeds comic book ink. Hell yeah, I got Superman. And the guy's like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. No flying. And Kevin's like, okay, like I can work with this. There have been stories he lost his powers. What's it like when you're Superman? You can't fly. Okay. And he can't be in the costume. And Kevin's like, okay, whew, all right.
Right.
I still got Superman. He can't fly. There's no costume. But blah blah blah. I can do this. I'm not gonna give up. And then he's like, and I want him to fight like a giant mechanical spider. And Kevin's like Superman has like literally like 100 supervillains to choose from.
Yeah,
Like there's no
and none of
limit.
them are a giant mechanical
Right,
spider.
right. Which yeah, it does. He's like, all right. And then it's like in development hell. And then Wild Wild West comes along and they're fighting a giant mechanical spider.
Right.
And he told that story. It's just so damn funny. But I think it also speaks to Hollywood. And I would love to hear you talk about this, where like Oliver Stone was going to get the rights to the Fountainhead, the novel. And instead of Howard Rourke being an individualist, he was going to put up housing projects.
Right.
And it's like, you want to tell that story, tell that story. That's not in the Fountainhead. And
It's a
why are you
different
doing
story, right?
it's a
Go
different
find
story?
something else. Find a
So
collectivist story to tell.
is there a lot of when you're in meetings with people that they don't know what they have and they think they're surrounded by so many people who validate their stupidity that at a certain point you have to smile and nod?
I find it more, and from my experience, and like I've done lots of movies, but I was never granted access to peek behind the curtain of the
Okay.
movies I was in. So I don't know what's happening on the movies in that way. But on television, I have been, um, you know, high enough up on the call
Sure.
sheet to like get involved in the making of it, and to some degree. And I found that quite often you will have somebody who has a vision, and that they have to run it through multiple
Yeah. Yeah.
channels at studios and networks, and everybody there, all the executives, in order to be relevant and stay relevant, they have to put their spin or their
Right.
stamp on it, and then you wind up with something else that's quite often not as good. um, and so yeah, it's really tough to make things that way, and a lot of the times too, like you can see it. I think it's such a terrible time for cinema right now. Like they got to reinvent this shit, man, because I love going to the movies, and they're empty. Although Sinners was quite good, I liked Sinners a lot, and that was packed, and I was like excited that it was hard to get a ticket for that. That made me really happy. But like that's one movie. I can't think of the last time I just saw a movie that David Mamet. I saw it as a play. It was a play that these guys put up during COVID at a small theater in Venice, California, and it was phenomenal. And it was like such a relief to be in a room with people during like the craziness,
Oh yeah.
you know. And then they went and shot it, and David Mamet directed it. Same cast as did it, and it's just wonderful. It's called Henry Johnson, and like that, but that's not going to get a wide release. That's not going to
Right.
get a lot of publicity. You know, it's going to be in a handful of theaters, and then it'll be relegated to on demand or streaming or however that shit works now. um you know, and then even TV, when it was like this magical moment for TV. Like I got to do a TV show with Hugh Laurie for a couple of years called Chance on Hulu, which was amazing. um, and that was when I was like, oh, forget movies. TV's
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
better than movies right now. And now there's just so much of it. And there's a couple really good shows, but I think they've had to rein in the budgets on these things, and look more for formula, and like what's going to make them the most money. And so I don't know, you know, you get bogged down into studios following trends, and then you just got to wait until that trend is fully in the ground, and they'll try to come up with something new. And I just think we're right now at the like the dying embers of the latest trend, which is all superheroes and stuff like that, you know.
And it's really that's something that triggers me a lot because superhero movies should be superb
Yeah.
and don't reinvent the wheel. You have the comics, film the comics. I was watching the last Shazam movie, and I know I'm blanking on the guy's name. He lives here in Austin now. Zach, whatever his name is, and they're fighting like these Greek characters. Like this character's been around since the 30s. Like there's so many of his rogues gallery that would be awesome there's Mr. Atom, his head is a nuke. Like there's Mr. Mind, he's a worm with a loudspeaker as a necklace. And why are you doing these stupid new characters when these are stories that kids loved for a long time? Adults can enjoy it as well. And it's just and not I mean I'm even talking about the woke stuff.
Yeah.
Just like why are you creating original generic stories when these characters have such a backlog? You could be here for another 50 years.
Yeah. I think it does come down to like what they can get money for, what has been proven to make money. You know, the last few Marvel movies, I don't think were
No,
huge
disaster.
hits. So I think that they're going to have to start reinventing that whole, you know, genre of film. And you know, the other thing is like they all wind up being a threat to the universe, which is like such high stakes that you almost
Right,
kind of go into apathy. Like, okay, here we go again. This guy's going to click his fingers, and half the people in the universe are going to die.
right.
And it's just like, can't it just be like a small town is in danger of like having their dam break? And you know, we need somebody who's above and beyond the average man to come and help out to stop the town from getting washed away. Like
You
that's
you
important too.
you almost just read my mind because what I was going to point out is there's never been a Brainiac movie with Superman. It's been Luthor.
Right.
Brainiac's entire shtick is he's a robot from space who captures cities and puts them in bottles.
Yeah.
There you go. Brainiac puts Smallville in a bottle.
We
That
just
is a
need
movie,
to protect this city is
right?
enough. It
Right.
doesn't have to be the whole universe.
And it's also exciting. It's like holy shit! Like this motherfucker just took Smallville and now he's holding it in a bottle.
Yeah. You know, it's like one of those things in movies where like hundreds of
Or
thousands of
Metropolis.
people are dying, and we feel nothing. But when the poor little dog is in peril, the whole audience is on the edge of their seat. You cannot let the dog die because that would be a bridge too far, right? Beyond the pale if the dog dies. I think it's the same thing if we scaled way down and it was like, it's not the entire globe that somebody's going to press a button and something's going to happen. It's just this little town. We get invested in the characters. I would be more apt to want to go and see that movie.
You know, that's so interesting you said that because when I was writing The White Pill, which is right there, um, I talk about the Berlin Wall. And there's this story of this kid, Peter Fechter. I think he was either 18 or 21. He tried to cross the wall and they shot him. And he's lying in the valley between the two dead man's, whatever they call that zone, between the two parts of the wall. And since the East and West Germans had recently had a skirmish, neither of them could really go down.
Right.
So he's bleeding out for an hour. And I sit for like 2 or 3 pages for the reader to imagine what it's like. You're there, you're bleeding out. You think, what's taking them so long? Then you think, wait a minute, what if they're not coming? And then you're like, holy shit, I know they're not coming. And like, what's going through his head? And it's just one person.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting there and you read through it, and then they carry him away, the footage on YouTube, like a kid, his feet dangling. And then when you say the East Germans later said he was a fascist, but everyone knew what he was, just another victim of the Berlin Wall. When you have that one story, and you sit there and you're like, this poor, and you can see his picture is very haunting.
It's way
so
more devastating. Yes, because we understand the totality of the situation through that very specific, it's more nuanced. And we know that that's not the only time that happened. Like if you made a movie about that, it certainly wouldn't be that this is the only casualty of the Berlin Wall. You know what I mean? Like we're understanding the Berlin Wall through his eyes. And I think it's very similar. The only characters in these superhero movies that we get to know anything about are the superheroes. And I just find it difficult to care about them, to be honest with you.
Right. Guys, did you know Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S., that they have thousands of different plants, over 2 million happy customers? They have everything your yard needs, from fruit trees to privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, so much more. No matter what plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered with options perfect for your climate and space. It's simple. Shop online, and they arrive healthy and happy right at your door in just a few days, backed by their Alive and Thrive guarantee. And their trained plant experts are on call to help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to care for them. I couldn't be more excited about Fast Growing Trees. I'm a tree person. Some of you might know this. I've got 400 species succulents in my house. So what happens with these sites like Fast Growing Trees, you get cool stuff you won't see anywhere else at competitive prices. It's really, really fun. And also you can figure out what works for your climate and what doesn't. Landscaping could have been a nightmare, but with Fast Growing Trees, you'll save up to 90% hiring a landscaper. This spring, Fast Growing Trees has the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using code WELCOME at checkout. That's additional savings at fastgrowingtrees.com/welcome at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com/welcome. Offer valid for limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Fast Growing Trees proudly supports American farmers. All plants and trees are grown tough on American soil by American farmers. We like that. Did you know that by the time summer starts, your skin's already in defense mode? Think about it. Sun exposure, chlorine, dry air from AC, they all wear down your skin barrier. They make your complexion dull, dehydrated, and more sensitive. Today's sponsor, OneSkin, has everything you need to know to keep your skin healthy, hydrated, and strong all summer long. Their secret? A proprietary peptide known as OS1. It's the first peptide scientifically proven to reduce the damaged cells that weaken your skin barrier and accelerate aging. It's the perfect time to reset before all of summer's skin stressors really kick in. The right moisturizer and SPF can make all the difference. So try OneSkin with 15% off your first order. Use code Malice at oneskin.co. As many of you know, I live in Austin, and Austin is sunny, to put it mildly. So I am looking forward to trying to not look like a mummy by the time summer ends, which here is around November. OneSkin's entire R&D process is run in-house. They strictly adhere to the rigor of the scientific process from start to finish, and every claim is based on lab or clinical studies and is documented. And they're the world's first skin longevity company. So by focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. And for a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using code Malice at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code Malice. And after you purchase, they'll ask you how you heard about them and support the show, and tell them Michael Malice sent me, and apologize for that. Give your skin the scientifically proven gentle care it deserves with OneSkin, as I'm about to. Let's get back to the show. So let's talk a bit about your podcast. Aren't you sick at this point of just talking about health? Like I feel like like any one subject, it just gets old.
You know, there's a for me, I'm not. It is one of the things I remain interested in talking about it, and kind of because for over 15 years prior to getting acclimated to something that was successful for myself, I struggled every day. And I struggled
Yeah,
in
yeah,
ways where I believed I was on a path that was going to lead me to success, only to have the rug pulled out from under me after a while. It was either unsustainable or didn't get me to where I wanted to go. And so I continue talking about it simply because I don't feel apprehensive that I'm going to gain 300 pounds back. But I do know that there is still a tenuousness to my condition, that my condition isn't a condition that goes away. It's a work in progress forever. Um, and so I'll continue talking about it as long as there's people who are like me or interested in it, you know?
but it's funny because I saw Jordan Peterson had Chris Bumstead on, who's like champion bodybuilder,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I can't wrap my head around what Jordan Peterson is going to talk to Bumstead about for 3 hours. Like I can click and I can learn for myself, but it's just like, then you're doing so much more aspects than obviously just literally bodybuilding.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in weight loss and health, and you know, now we have all the peptide revolution is
Right,
happening, and so I'm interested in that. And for me, that is a very precarious spot because the way I dieted for so long was that the diet was the solution, but
right,
the diet and the solution were a short-term thing. There was a finish line.
right,
And so if you it's quite dangerous actually to treat peptides that way, because what'll happen is we'll have some big portion of the population who's cycling on and off these things as though they're fad diets, and over the long haul you'll see their weight stay static but their body fat increase,
right.
if there's no other adjustments made to their lifestyle. um, you know, and that's sad because I experienced that with other diets, with fasting and with super low calorie diets, where I just wasted a lot of lean tissue and then rapidly regained the weight when I stopped doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think these peptides will make that a lot easier to do, which is scary.
I'm gonna have to come back on your show to discuss my recent situation with sleep apnea.
Oh my God,
It
you have
it
sleep apnea?
it almost killed me. I'm not even exaggerating. It was so bad. And I'll tell you the whole long story. And I think this is something that could help a lot of people.
Yeah.
It was so very scary. I'm getting the machine tomorrow,
Okay.
but this has been very, very bad for several months. And to have it be diagnosed and resolved is very gladdening. It was
How,
making me crazy.
how did you discover this?
Um, I didn't realize. Well, my ex was like, "You sleep like you're dying," so that was key. But I didn't realize, and it's kind of obvious in retrospect, that sleep issues affect your mental health, and I didn't realize to what extent they affect your mental health. And if you watch the other thing, there are all these little clues. If you people commented on the biggest indicator is I took a what do you call those driverless cars?
A
Um,
Waymo?
a Waymo. I got a Waymo for the first time. I was so excited. I filmed myself in it and I put it on Instagram, not listening to it. And the comments are like, "Are you beating off? Like, why is there a pug in the car?" Because I was breathing so heavily.
Really?
And I'm breathing heavily, and I still am right now a little bit because the palate in the back of my mouth, I would be breathing through my mouth while I'm sleeping, so it would dry out and then heal and dry out and heal. The ENT said it looked like pancakes.
So it's
I don't know what
just
that
like
means.
calloused and calloused and calloused, I
I don't
bet.
know if it's literally callus, something. He like, and it's very big. So I was reading a book out loud, and after a page, I was out of breath. I'm like, okay, this is something fat like 800-pound people can do. Something's really wrong. And obviously, if I can't talk, that a lot of people be happy, but it certainly affects my livelihood. So I went to the ENT, and I'll tell you the whole long story in your show. It
Okay.
was
Are you getting a
really
machine or having shit lasered off?
Oh, what's that? I didn't even heard about that. What
I
do you mean?
I got a consult because I had sleep apnea when I was 550
Right, of
pounds.
course, yeah.
Weight loss made it go away, but when I did it, they looked in my throat because there was, and look, I think any procedure like that has the risk of like messing up your vocal cords, but they were like, there is the potential for a procedure where they just clear out excess tissue in your throat.
So he's made it sound like once I get this CPAP, the swelling will go down.
Yeah. So then it's
I
a
said, "Do I
mess.
need surgery?" He said, "No."
Okay,
And it
good.
was really funny because he looked at my throat. He goes, "You don't look like someone who should have this."
Yeah. Yeah, no, no. Normally, it really is caused by just the pressure of the neck.
Yeah.
Once you get above like a size 19 neck, it's kind of
Yeah,
just going to
so
collapse.
this was I'll tell you, I'll go into show tell you the whole story. It
Yeah,
was really, really intense and did and has continued to do quite a number on me. And I think it's much more common than people realize
yeah, I think so too.
because you're not going to know.
And it can. And the really sad thing is, you think like I got a lousy night's sleep, but no, it can't kill you. You can just die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. So wait, what films are you what you got coming up in the pipeline now or
I've
shows?
got a movie. I've got a show on Amazon right now called The Pradeeps of Pittsburgh, which is
Okay.
about an Indian family that moves from India to Pittsburgh, gets me and my very Christian wife as the neighbors, and my Christian wife does everything in her power to convert them.
Oh,
Like brings them a Bible as a
yeah,
housewarming
yeah.
gift and stuff like that. And there's a quite a bit of tension between the households, but it's very funny. That's on Amazon Prime.
Wait, was that filmed in Pittsburgh itself?
No, unfortunately, that was filmed in Toronto.
Oh, well,
Yes,
I love Toronto. I love what Toronto used to be.
I love
Um,
Toronto too. Toronto's a great city. I will say the fact that I get banged twice for taxes when I shoot in
oh yeah,
Canada
yeah.
is not fun. That makes it kind of a drag. So,
I
you know,
feel like if you're gonna set it in a city, film in the city.
yeah, just set it in
Like
Pittsburgh.
I feel like it's probably gonna be like I just finished I'm watching Detroiters right now, which is a Comedy Central show with Tim Robinson, who does I Think You Should Leave. It was just a masterpiece of a show, but it's a love letter to Detroit, and it's filmed in Detroit.
That's good. I think certainly California has made it so difficult to shoot anything in
Sure,
California. And so then you go outside of California, and I think like New Mexico has good incentives, Louisiana has
sure.
good incentives, Georgia has good incentives. But even still, Canada has such great incentives that a huge amount of American productions move to Canada and just shoot stuff in Canada.
But so what was that? Was that Bronx? Was it the Jackie Chan movie? Was it something Rumble in the Bronx, and that's in like Ontario or something like
Yeah,
that,
it's
with the
crazy.
mountains in the background?
Yeah,
Okay, so, but that must be. I mean, you must. From My Name Is Earl, you must love kind of being a comedic actor. That seems like a lot of fun.
it is fun. It's light. It's easy. Yeah, the show I did with Hugh Laurie, um, where I just had pages of monologues and it was all heavy, was maybe the most aesthetically pleasing to me because I also
Sure,
played like intelligent and capable and tough, which was all kind of new. Um, but comedy, when it's light and fun, it is just fun. You make people laugh. You're trying to
yeah.
think of new ways to make people laugh. It can be a lot of fun.
And I feel like when you're like, it's got to be emotionally exhausting as an actor to kind of channel intensity and darkness. Whereas if you're just having a fun sitcom that people are going to watch with their families and kind of make their day, that's you kind of leave work being like, all right, that was whew,
Yeah.
like what's next?
Or give somebody an escape. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I also have a horror movie, and I'm talking to the director now about possibly it's going to go to some festivals, film festivals, but then there's some universe where we might do take a page out of the Kevin Smith book and do these events where we go around like maybe to all the Alamo Draft House theaters and have a night where we show somebody's local short film that's a horror thing followed by our movie followed by a Q&A, something like that. um, because like I don't know, man. Other than in a movie theater, I don't see previews for movies anymore. Like I just don't know how these things are being marketed. You go to Times Square and there's going to be a big, electric billboard of whatever the next Marvel movie is or Sinners, but like a small little independent horror movie isn't going to get airtime like that. So I think we got to do a little bit more, to bring it around to get different audiences to see it.
I feel like for those, they're counting a lot on word of mouth and social media.
Yeah, totally. And
Are you watching From, by the way?
no.
Oh, really?
What is it?
I'm,
Is it a show? I got to watch it.
It's a horror show. Well, hold your roll, and to everyone watching at home, because someone said something to me on the internet, and I think they're lying. So the premise, it feels just like Lost, and it turns out it's by the same people as Lost. And I loved the first couple seasons of Lost, like everybody else. I want to murder the staff now that the show's done.
Yeah.
But the premise of From, and it's got Michael Perino, I think his name is. He was Walt's dad on or Harold, whatever the guy's name. I'm sorry, the guy Walt's dad on Lost. He's the main character. He's the sheriff. So there's this town.
Harold Perrin.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great actor.
And he's like 60. He looks like he's 30. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So there's this town, and people just take a highway. They just show up at the town, and if you try to drive out, it just drives you in circles. You can't leave.
Oh wow!
Right. And at night, these things come out of the woods and try to kill you, and they're basically stuck in this town trying to figure out a way out. And more crazy things keep happening, and it's really, really exciting. And I said online, I go, this feels like Lost. Are we going to get answers? And someone said, yep, they give you answers. And I'm on episode 9 of season 3 of 3 seasons released so far. There's no answers.
Right.
But apparently the internet rumor says Harold, before he signed to do this, he needed assurance
that
there's going to be answers, and he was promised this. But it's really, really good. But there's no payoffs yet so far.
Well, that's the other thing about television shows, especially ones where, like Lost did this. I'm scared that Silo is going to do this, because I really liked the first season of Silo. Did you watch that?
That's another one. They call these mystery box shows.
Yeah, where it's like, oh my God, we had a season designed with great answers at the end of season 1, but oh my God, we could get 5 seasons out of this. How do we string them along? Right. And then the answers that they had are completely irrelevant by the time you get to the 5th season. You're just making shit up, and it stops working, really.
Right. And it's really frustrating. Another thing I caught on this show is, so there's all these townspeople, but obviously there's the central cast. But whenever one of these people in the background starts having lines, he's a goner in like 3 or 4 episodes.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. So you can't get invested in them. And then, I really loved Game of Thrones. The books were awesome. George Martin is a complete maniac, but they killed the hero. Sorry if nobody's seen it or read the books. In season 1, on the first book, the main dude gets his head cut off at the end of the book, and it's such a gut punch. And then nobody's really safe. They killed people left and right in that show. And I like that. I appreciated that, because you get more out of it knowing nobody's safe. When you're watching Lost, you just know, unless one of those actors has like a nervous breakdown, they moved to Hawaii. They're there. They're doing the show forever. None of them are going to get taken out.
That's not true. They killed off Mr. Echo. They killed off Harold.
All right. So a couple of them. A couple
of them. And then the 2, what was that Hispanic lady who was like really butch? They get rid of her quick.
Listen, I fucked up. I haven't watched Lost in many years. And this was, I did a podcast with Stavros Halkias, and I was like, Chris Farley never took his shirt off, and I was so confident in saying that.
But at the Chippendale sketch.
Right. Thank you. I fucked up. So maybe they killed a bunch of people in Lost. The ending still sucked.
Oh, yeah. But the thing that was annoying about, so they do kill off a lot of people in From. And it comes out of nowhere. But the point is, they're killing them, but there's no plot progression.
Right.
It's just like, all right, this actress is gone. I liked her.
Right.
Now what?
Now you got to fill her. There's going to be a new actress.
Right.
And we'll get to like her too. And she'll be safe for a couple of years.
Hey, it's James Altucher. I've been an entrepreneur, investor, best-selling writer, stand-up comic, and whatever it is I'm interested in, I get obsessed. Yes, it's led to success, but it's also led to such heartbreaking failure. I have failed more times than I can count. I wish in my life I had people to talk to. That's why I started the James Altucher Show and bring on some of the most brilliant minds in every area of life. People like Richard Branson, Sarah Blakely, Mark Cuban, Danica Patrick, Gary Kasparov, and I wanted to find out exactly how they've navigated the highs, the lows, and everything in between. No fluff, just raw stories and real advice. I've talked to 1,500 of the most amazing people on the planet. So if you want to learn from the best and skip the same old canned interviews, we're all about helping you find your next big idea, level up your thinking, and ultimately to choose yourself. So let's do this together. Subscribe now to The James Altucher Show.
Let's get back to the show. I want to hear, you must have had those fires impacted you or several of your friends.
Yes, some of my friends were impacted. I was not
Yeah.
impacted at all. I watched the fires raging from New York and was, I've been in California for riots, for hurricanes, for fires even. I once, my children went to a boarding school in Oregon, and there was one year where we took them, and some huge portion of California and Oregon were on fire, and the sky was red and it was scary, but it wasn't really near heavily inhabited areas.
Okay.
This was something else. And when I talk to people, unfortunately, and not to make light of it at all, or make people's experience not as profound as they were being on the ground, but on social media, that's all my feed was. The news, that's all the news was. And then I'd talk to people and they'd be like, yeah, at night I can see the fire, but it's not going to get to me. But the people in the neighborhoods like the Palisades or Altadena, it got to them, and I don't even know if we have a total death count. I have a buddy who's a sheriff, and he said that stuff was so thoroughly destroyed by the fire that they have to take like cadaver dogs in there to try and sniff for human remains. And that's a terrible idea too, of like, could be a lot more people dead that we just don't even know about.
Well, I thought the numbers were thankfully quite low.
I mean, they seem low to me for the 12,000 structures burned to the ground.
Was it 12,000?
Yeah, something like that. 12,000. That's an insane amount of structures.
There's this Belinda Carlisle song called California, and she has Brian Wilson do the background vocals on it. And it just hurt. The point is, like, it took a lot for me to say goodbye to California, because obviously the Go-Go's are such a quintessential California band. And like, I know a lot of people are just like politically like, yeah, like fuck yeah. But I got to tell you, California, the idea of California has always been such an American idea, American piece of American mythos. This this place of perpetual sunshine, and it's always had a seedy underbelly, and that's fine. But it just, maybe watching New York be destroyed, it makes me sad on some level to see it just kind of spiral the drain.
Yeah,
I guess that's all I could say.
No, it's really sad. I think that for the climate and topography, the fact that you can go surfing in the morning and skiing in the afternoon, that the average temperature is like 70 degrees. We have it gets hot days in the summer and cold days in the winter, but it is such a beautiful place, the entire place. You have the Angeles Crest Mountains, the Sierra Nevadas, you have Yosemite, you have the Redwoods. The Redwood Forest is magical. Like, California is a really, really special state, I think. And, the fact that, like, there's, like, I come from the entertainment industry, and it's sad that so little of it is left in California, and that it's all being kind of boxed out. And I'll tell you, this TV show I shot with Hugh Laurie was in, it's called Chance, by the way. It's on Hulu and Disney Plus. We shot the first season in 2016 in San Francisco. And man, San Francisco was a mess. We couldn't go for a short walk out your front door without walking over needles. There were multiple dead bodies at base camp around the trailers when we were shooting.
Literally dead bodies?
Literally, like, you'd come into work and they'd have to like rope off a section of where we were shooting because there would be a dead body there. I've been doing this 31 years. That's the only time a dead body ever interfered with shooting. And it happened multiple times. It wasn't just a one-off. There were stabbings, there were ODs, there were people who died just from exposure. And like, after the fifth time that happened, me and Hugh went to the producers and we're like, we're not going to come back here. If we do another season of this, we don't want to be in San Francisco. So we forced them to move to Los Angeles. And then they spent a bunch of money painting the San Francisco skyline in the background of all the shots. And we got another season in Los Angeles. But I got to tell you, while I was there, I was like, they will never allow this in Los Angeles. They will never allow this amount of like, look, I'm a sober guy, and I think that sending somebody to prison for drug use is a complete waste of time. I don't have a solution. That said, I don't want to see people smoking crack openly on the street. I don't want to see people shooting up. Like, it's
such a radical.
You know what I mean? Like I just don't need that. And
can I say one thing? I also think it's traumatic for kids.
I did too.
When a child sees someone who's high or inebriated, they don't know what that is. And for a kid's brain, they're either like a demon or a monster. It's something children shouldn't see that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm not sitting here from a place like I have all the answers and you should just do X, Y, Z. I have these feelings simultaneously that I don't think sending a person to jail for drugs is worthwhile.
Right.
And at the same time, I don't want to see it. I don't want it in the street. I don't want to walk over it. Like, go do it, behind a dumpster at least. I don't know. And by the time like COVID started rolling around, Los Angeles looked quite a bit like San Francisco did 5 years earlier. And it was so depressing to me.
Because you know how that story ends.
It's just going to get worse. I do think it started to get cleaned up. It isn't as bad as it was, strangely. And I don't know why that is. I don't really take politics too seriously at all. And I don't think that there's Johnny, the mayor, is in there now cleaning. I have no idea what's happening, but it doesn't seem as bad to me as it was. But yeah, again, like you said, I'm not hopeful. And I think it's so tragic that, that city, which was such a beautiful, but San Francisco was such a beautiful city too. And it's just pretty disgusting now.
Dude, and it's even crazier when you think that in the late 60s, San Francisco was the center of hippie culture. Everyone is high on their minds 24/7. And it was nothing like this.
No.
Like that's a paradise compared to this.
Yeah.
And you know what else is something? First of all, the idea that I wouldn't be in New York is something that I didn't think was a possibility. But also that as a lifelong New Yorker, that I would say at any point that the LA is better than New York now, which it is something I never thought I'd say. And I think the difference between LA and New York today is that there is this element of, I don't know if hope is the word. I know things are going to get worse, but there's something positive about LA that I'm not seeing in New York. Maybe it's just the weather.
Yeah. Yeah. The weather is amazing. New York sucks in the summer and in the winter.
Right.
But the spring is pretty great. When the cherry blossoms blossom,
it's just great. Also funny because the winter's just long enough that because it's May and it's still cold and you're like, okay, I'm about to break. And the Puppet Master weather is like, okay, tomorrow. And so the next day it starts getting warm and you're like, all right. And then you forget.
Yeah.
And being here in my shorts in January, I'm like, the darkness, like, how did I do this for my entire life? I just think there's nothing, you don't realize there's an alternative. Folks, head over to malice.locals.com where Ethan took questions from show supporters. Folks, the show is American Glutton. I wear the shirts to the gym. Big fan. Ethan, thank you so much for taking the time to do.
Before we get into this, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
What was my favorite part of this episode?
I would say seeing my happy, thin, smiling face. You're welcome, fatty.
Are you looking for your next case? Pluto TV has all your favorite crime dramas streaming for free.
You're gonna need some backup.
Which means suspense is free.
Very cool.
Watch CSI New York, Criminal Minds, Blue Bloods, Tracker, FBI, and SWAT all for free.
You can't outrun this.
Someone is gonna pay for all this crime. but it's not gonna be you.
Take care of business, fellas.
Watch all the cases, all for free, from all your favorite devices.
We got you.
Feel the free. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.